This podcast episode is sponsored by Geekdom, San Antonio's entrepreneurship hotspot and co-working space. Whether you need one-time recurring office space or event space, Geekdom has it all. Use code SOCIALBUTTERFLY when signing up for a membership to receive $25 off of monthly memberships. Welcome back to Unapologetically Visible, the podcast for high-achieving Latina and women of color founders who are done being the best kept secret. I'm your host, Christina Olivarez, award-winning leadership and visibility coach, TEDx speaker, and founder and CEO of the Social Butterfly Gal and Hustle and Socialize. Today, I'm diving into all things visibility from the messy middle. Being seen isn't an issue for many of you anymore, especially when you think about what growth looks like for you in this next season. That's where you might find yourself pausing and wondering what visibility beliefs aren't serving you anymore. When your life and your business changes, you do not just change your offer, you have to change the way people understand you. You have to tolerate a season where some people still see the old version of you while you are learning how to communicate the new one. When you start thinking about your visibility and what it looks like for you in this next era, a big piece of that is you understanding what is sustainable for your energy, your actual time commitments, your priorities, and the life you are building outside of the business. And this matters. In today's episode, we are going to examine some of the beliefs that we have inherited about visibility before we unconsciously build a business that require us to be publicly available at all times. I'm going to walk you through 5 beliefs about visibility that I've had to unlearn in order to grow my business as well as continue to evolve it. And as I share these beliefs that I've been unlearning, I want you to think about your visibility right now and think about some of the rules or beliefs that you might still be following simply because they worked for you in an earlier version of your business and how these beliefs might be hindering you from unlocking your potential. Belief number 1 that I am unlearning is this belief that I need to reach more people in order to grow my business and my income. One of the most seductive beliefs in business is that growth is always waiting on the other side of a larger audience. I hear this from my clients about how they want more followers, more views, more reach. And yes, I've often found myself wanting the same things at times. And sometimes I get really frustrated when I know that the algorithm is not pushing my content out. I find it funny how many of the complaints that we see online about the Instagram algorithm are complaints about content not being seen by the people that we follow. And sometimes I feel like when I look at my Instagram analytics, I have the opposite problem because a lot of my followers, maybe about 70% of them, are seeing my content, which is a great thing. But sometimes our minds play tricks on us that we need to have this massive reach in order to grow. And I feel like sometimes I, in particularly, get really frustrated when I feel that my reach and my videos aren't getting the maximum results for the efforts that I'm putting in to create them. While I do believe that reach matters because people definitely cannot consider you if they haven't encountered you, somewhere along the way, many of us started to treat the audience size as the primary evidence that our business has momentum. That belief can become especially dangerous for an established founder because you may have already have more visibility than you realize. The issue might not be that people don't know you. The issue could be that the right people do not clearly understand what you do now, why this matters in this current market, and what decision they should make next. I've had to confront this in my own business when I started looking more carefully at where my actual buyers were coming from. For years, I had built a community, created so much content from 2015 up until now, 2026. I've hosted conferences, events, have shifted many of my offers, and I have developed a recognizable brand that has had people following me through all of the different seasons of my life and my business. But when I audited my current buyers, I was recognizing through the client and sales data that my audience and my buyers are sometimes not always the same people. There were so many people that were in my audience that were liking my content and sharing my content, but those were not necessarily the people that were actually making the investment to work with me. And I was recognizing that sometimes the most vocal members of my community were not always the ones that were moved into paid work. Some of my best clients came through referrals or relationships, sustained proximity, or previous experiences with my work. And sometimes those conversations were not always visible on social media. In fact, one of my mentors was saying that he mentioned me in a conversation with another person that he was talking about needing a coach. And I was recognizing that there you go, buyers and audiences might not be the same thing. So that forced me to reconsider what I thought and believed about visibility and how sometimes that is not working when I don't see a huge reach that I thought I needed to see. I feel like when I started to unlearn all of that belief, I started to think about, is my visibility truly not working, or am I just evaluating it through audience and the audience's behavior versus my actual buyer behavior? An audience member may follow you because they find you super inspiring, but they might not have a current need for your service at this particular moment in time. But a buyer is always evaluating something. They are paying attention to whether you understand the complexity of their situation, and they're noticing whether you can hold the nuances to their problems. They're looking through your content into how you make decisions, how you understand certainty, especially if you're a service provider. They want to feel like they could trust you. And sometimes that doesn't come from a single post. That person might be listening and binging all of your content, your body of work. And then suddenly they reach out and say, hey, I feel like you've been inside my head. That's why I no longer believe that growth always requires becoming super visible to more people. Sometimes growth requires becoming more relevant to the most aligned buyers and deepening those relationships with the people that are already in your ecosystem, rather than compulsively trying to attract new strangers at all times. This is always one of the things that I coach my clients to look at. Before we assume that their problem might be reach, we examine the evidence. I start digging through, where did the strongest clients actually find them? What pieces of content actually made them trust you? How long were your buyers paying attention before they bought? What were they experiencing professionally, emotionally, and financially when they finally were ready to make the decision? You may discover that you do not have a visibility problem, but you might have a translation problem in understanding where your buyers are actually at. The right people may already be in your ecosystem, but they cannot yet see the full value of what you do until you actually communicate it. Belief number 2 that I am having to unlearn is this belief that consistency alone is going to make people see me as an authority. Consistency has absolutely contributed to my reputation. But when I think about just consistency alone, that does not actually create my authority. Authority grows when people begin associating you with a clear body of thought. They start understanding through your content what you actually disagree with. They can start identifying the problem and the patterns that you help solve. They start trusting your discernment because they have seen how you already arrive at specific decisions. For a long time, I think many of us were taught that the goal of visibility was to stay in front of people and top of mind at all times. We got to keep posting. We got to keep reminding people that you exist. Keep feeding that content machine so that many people don't forget about you. But there is a huge difference between posting frequency and actual consistency. I've reached a point in my business where I am less interested in being remembered because I posted frequently. Like, me posting 2 to 3 times a day. And I'm more interested in being remembered because something I said changed the way a woman understood herself, her leadership, and her business. All of that requires more than consistency. It requires substance and the ability to be vulnerable through sharing my lived experiences. It requires a willingness to say something that is clear enough to be disagreed with. And it requires allowing people to see my mind at work. That is one reason why my podcast matters so much in my own visibility ecosystem. It is a credibility podcast. It is meant for people to hear my credibility and to be able to convert and work with me because they binged my body of work. While a social media post can introduce an idea, this podcast gives me room to build my case, like creating an argument in a courtroom. I can tell you where the belief came from, how I've experienced it personally, where I think the common advice in business and leadership and marketing falls short, like surface level, and how I would coach someone through their problems. That depth is part of the trust building process. My ideal client is not choosing me as a coach because she needs another list of content prompts or ideas or a challenge for them to be able to get on camera and talk. My clients are established, intellectual businesswomen who have already made significant decisions in their life and their business. They've already built great revenue and served many clients throughout their tenure. They've led teams and projects and communities. They do not need to be told just to believe in themselves or to get on camera to be more visible. They need to have someone that is able to meet them at the level of complexity that they are actually navigating at this current moment when it comes to self-trust, decision-making, leadership, visibility. They need to hear how I think, and that is authority. If you're an established founder, I want you to ask yourself whether your consistency is revealing your intellectual property, or is it simply proving that you can maintain a regular posting schedule? Those are very different outcomes. More content is not always the answer. Belief number 3 that I am unlearning is this belief that I have to keep being known for what originally made me successful in the first place. When something works, people automatically attach your name to it. They start knowing you for a particular identity. That recognition becomes extremely valuable and is probably what created your success in the first place. But then you and your business evolves. And suddenly that very thing that once made you visible begins making it harder for people to see who you have become now. I've experienced this across 3 major business model shifts in the last 11 years. Each shift required me to release some version of what people understood about me. For example, when I first started my company, I was running a social media management company. And so my identity as a business owner and as an expert became very well versed in the social media world. I was often getting asked to come speak on panels and deliver workshops and fireside chats and keynotes around social media marketing, anything digital media, influencer marketing. And that was pretty much my brand for the first 5 years of my company until I made a decision to retire my social media management services and started to shift into more of coaching and consulting and events and community building. And for a while, people still automatically associated my name with social media. And so I had to do the hard part in starting to delete some of that language off of my website and my bios to the point where the social media expert or the thing that I was most known for wasn't my whole identity. While social media is definitely part of the work that I do as a coach, it is what we work on through the channels, the marketing channels. It is no longer my identity because I've evolved and my business has evolved. And I feel like that shift really made it sometimes difficult for me to process that in real time because I kept thinking as I was making the shift, will I lose the community that I had built before? Will the new pivot make sense to people? And what happens if I let go of the one thing that made people care about me and my brand in the first place? Established founders carry a very specific kind of visibility pressure because you are not introducing yourself to a blank room. You are evolving in front of people who already have expectations about you and your brand. And as you begin to evolve, sometimes those expectations can become a cage. You stay loyal to an identity that is no longer honest because you are afraid of losing the credibility that you work so hard to build. But I'm here to tell you that your work is allowed to evolve. Your priorities are allowed to change, and your capacity is allowed to inform the business model that you build next. My current business model transition is not only about what I want to be known for, but it's more about what my visibility is going to require from me operationally in my next chapter. So I'm starting to think more deeply about how much time is this business model going to take me? How emotionally available is this model going to require for me to be? Does the strategy depend on constant access to me? Does the support and the level of private coaching and strategic partnership that I'm building with my clients really reflect the depth of my work? Does this business model leave room for my marriage, my health, my family, and the next chapter of my personal life? Those questions are not separate from business strategy. There have been many seasons when a more expansive, community-facing business model made sense for me. There were seasons where I had the energy and time and desire to create larger experiences and hold a different kind of public brand role. That does not mean I have to recreate those seasons forever simply because they were successful. Success in one season does not create an obligation to repeat it in the next. And that is something that I have to remind myself and that I remind my clients constantly. You are not required to keep building the business that made sense before you became the woman that you are now, but you do have a responsibility to help people understand your evolution. You have to tell the story. And you have to connect the dots between the past work and your future work. You have to show people that your evolution is not random. It is the result of deeper experience, clearer standards, and stronger discernment, and a more accurate understanding of where you create the most value. That is how you carry credibility forward without remaining trapped by your previous identity. Belief number 4 that I am unlearning is this belief that a more polished and impressive brand that I appear, the more people will trust me. As women of color, as Latinas, many of us have learned early on that we have to be excellent because excellence is not optional. We learn to prepare more, to anticipate the questions, look the part, prove our worth, prove our value, avoid giving anyone a reason to question whether we belong in the room. That conditioning does not disappear when we become entrepreneurs. In fact, it could quietly shape our visibility. We start believing that trust comes from presenting the most polished, perfect version of ourselves at all times. Yes, professionalism does matter. I care deeply about the way my work is presented. I believe in being prepared and taking my craft seriously and honoring my audience's time. But polish can become a hiding place, especially with perfectionism. You can become so focused on looking credible that people never get to experience the real, the raw, and the source of your credibility. Now, of course, there is a time and a place for all of that realness, but some of the most trust building things that I have shared publicly have not been moments where I had everything figured out. There is a difference between allowing people to witness your leadership and using your audience as a processing room. I do not believe we have to publicly disclose every hardship to prove that we are authentic. Privacy is part of leadership too. My clients do not hire me because I have never questioned myself. They hire me because I know how to work with doubt without letting doubt make every single decision for me. This is what I want people to experience through my content, through my podcasts, a trustworthy mind. When I think about the women that I work best with in my coaching containers, I think about them looking for someone who can see them super clearly, that could challenge them responsibly and remain grounded when they are in the middle of uncertainty. That kind of trust is not created by being super polished and untouchable. It's created by congruence. So I always ask deeper questions. Anytime I'm working with my clients, I always ask, do your words match your decisions? Does your visibility reflect what you actually value? Does your business model support the life that you say you want? Can people feel that you have done the work that you are asking them to do? That is what builds trust at this level. And finally, belief number 5 that I am unlearning is this belief that if my visibility is working, the response should be immediate and quick. This belief is going to make you question everything when you are in a slow and quiet season. You post something meaningful and then maybe it doesn't perform the way that you expected, or you announce and launch an offer and no one immediately reaches out. That's when your mind starts creating a story. You start thinking about that maybe this pivot was a mistake and maybe the market doesn't want this. I have had moments where I have spiraled because I've been in a very quiet season. But it kind of goes back to what I had said earlier about how your audience and your buyers are very different. There are many moments where I feel it's very quiet and I had no idea that there was somebody out there fully binging my body of work and quietly making a decision without me even noticing or without it being super quick and immediate. It's one of the most important things that I have learned, especially as a business owner, and that is to start understanding my thoughts. Your thoughts cause the effect. Your thoughts produce the data. It may also mean the visibility is quietly doing its job. Someone may be deciding whether the perceived risk of investing in you feels manageable. That is especially important if you sell premium, high ticket, high trust service. That is why credibility content matters. It gives a buyer repeated opportunities to access your thinking before they enter a sales conversation with you. You cannot build that trust if you keep changing direction every time the response is not immediate. You have to give your work enough time to create recognition. You have to know what evidence you are looking for. And you have to develop the emotional maturity to remain still and in the process without interpreting every quiet moment as rejection. That does not mean staying loyal to a strategy that has no proof. It means making decisions from a fuller picture. I want to slow you down for just a second and do a mini coaching experience with you. Wherever you are, if you are available, I want you to grab a piece of paper or a notebook or open your notes app. If you are driving, please stay on the road, but you can always come back to this at a later time. And I'm going to walk you through some coaching questions that I would give a client who maybe is trying to unlearn specific beliefs around their visibility. So number one, I want you to think about the ways that you are currently showing up right now in your business. Think about your content, the platforms that you are on, the networking events that you're going to, just all of the ways that you are visibly showing up. What visibility rules are you still following because it helped an earlier version of your business succeed? I want you to write all that down, and then I want you to name that rule or that belief that you still believed in. Then I want you to ask yourself, what does my actual capacity support right now? What you can emotionally hold without resenting your business. Then go deeper and ask yourself, where have my best buyers, my best clients actually come from? Go back to that evidence. I want you to look at the last 5 clients that you genuinely enjoyed working with, that you've had proven results, that they're just your rock star clients. I want you to look at who referred them to you, what content were they consuming, what conversations did you have with them that may have created trust? How long have they known you and how long they've been in your ecosystem? What problem were they ready to solve? Answer it based on your business data. Then write out, what part of my old identity am I afraid to release? And what evidence contradicts the story that nothing is working? Then make one visibility decision from that truth this week. And once you make that decision, I want you to send me a DM on Instagram, letting me know that you listen to this podcast. And this is the one or the many beliefs that you are unlearning and that one decision that you are going to make from this truth. The biggest lesson I've learned is that my visibility is not something that I can perfect only one time. It is something that I recalibrate time after time after time. As my leadership changes, my visibility has to change with it. As my life changes, my capacity has to be deepened. As I become more established, the goal is no longer to be seen by everybody. The goal is to be understood, trusted, and chosen by the most aligned people without building a business that requires me to abandon myself in order to sustain it. If you resonated with this episode, here's what I want you to do next. Subscribe and leave a review because that helps this podcast reach more women like us, women who were never meant to stay hidden, women who are meant to be highly visible leaders. Share this episode with someone you love who is trying to unlearn specific visibility beliefs that may be hindering them from unlocking their next potential. And DM me on Instagram at the Social Butterfly Gal. Tell me your biggest reframe and biggest breakthrough from today's conversation. And if you're feeling the call to go deeper, to recalibrate your personal brand, leadership, and your visibility, I would love to support you through one-on-one coaching. You can find the coaching information and offers in the show notes below, or send me a DM with the word coaching, and I will personally walk you through what offers are in alignment with your current season and what it looks like to step into this next era with clarity, confidence, and unapologetic authority. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and for all the shares and reviews. Remember this, you didn't come this far to play safe. You came here to be unapologetically visible. I'll see you next week.